All right, welcome again to the Cal Grant Regional Training Session A1. This is all about CSAC updates. So the session topics we're going to cover today include the brand new California Community College FAFSA CADA completion dashboard. So we're going to take a look at that. You'll see a screenshot of the website, and there are even links to the new dashboard in the PDF that you should have received on Friday. We'll look at new program updates. We'll look specifically at Cal Grant C and how those awards have been updated. We'll look at the new the Golden State Teacher Grant changes, including the new cohort system. We'll review Middle Class Scholarship 2.0 updates for 24-25, and then just mention a few other important updates. And as a reminder, if you have questions for us, please feel free to utilize the Q&A box. We will not be answering questions in the chat just because it is harder to keep track of them there. So if you ask in the Q&A box, we can answer you directly, and then all of the attendees can see the question you asked and the answer that was given. So please don't be shy. Now is the perfect time to ask your questions. You can also ask them during the presentation. You can also wait until the end, whatever is more convenient for you. So first, let's go ahead and take a look at the new FAFSA CADA completion dashboard for the California Community College system. So we are very pleased to announce the release of this brand new 24-25 FAFSA CADA completion dashboard. This was a joint effort between the Commission and the California Community College Chancellor's Office. The new dashboard enables community colleges to monitor the completion of financial aid applications for their students. This tool supports the California Community College's Vision 2030 to maximize financial aid for community college students and to increase the number of students receiving Pell and the California Promise Grant by 10% by the year 2030. So we are very proud to announce this brand new tool. The dashboard is now live, and it tracks the count of financial aid applications submitted by community college enrolled students for the 24-25 award year. It provides weekly progress updates on FAFSA and CADA completions and submission rates by community college campus, by district, and by region. Now, students are counted based on the community college campuses listed on their FAFSA or CADA. So please note that students may be counted for multiple schools if multiple community colleges are listed on their application. So for more information, I highly recommend that you read our Grant Special Alert 2481. It is linked here on the slide. And we also have down at the bottom a link to the dashboard itself. So you can actually check it out now. If you go to our website, csac.ca.gov, there is a window at the very front page that says CCC dashboard. So you can also link to it directly from there. But take a look. I feel like this is an excellent tool that's going to be extremely helpful for our California community colleges, especially as they approach the year 2030 and attempting to reach their goals and their vision. So check it out. One thing to note here is I just wanted to draw your attention to community college enrollment at the top, and then the number of FAFSAs and CADAs that have been submitted. So as of last week, it's looking to be about 60% submitted and completed. So we've got a long way to go, but we've already made so much progress. 60% is an excellent number. Next, we'll take a look at some CSAC program updates. So first, this is not necessarily new information, but it is new for 24-25. So if you weren't already aware that there have been changes to the SWD process, we just wanted to let you know or to just refresh your memory. So Cal Grant for Students with Dependents is an access award for students who have their own dependent child, or legal dependent under the age of 18. Now, with the 24-25 FAFSA simplification, they consolidated the children and other dependents questions into one question. So it's no longer separated to know if the student has children and if the student has legal dependents. It's now consolidated into one question, so it's a little more difficult to separate the two. So as a result, the Commission adjusted the SWD process to an opt-in model, and that allows students to confirm that they have a dependent child or legal dependent under the age of 18 through their Web Grants for Students account. For those of you who have been coordinating and processing Cal Grants for a while, you'll know that that certification process is not new, but the way it works and how students opt in is new. So I'll cover that in the next slide. So we also added an SWD flag to students' Web Grants for Students if this particular question was answered yes, or if they checked that box on the FAFSA or CADA. So on the next slide, let's take a closer look and compare the old process with the new process. So prior to 24-25, students were flagged for potential SWD eligibility based on their response to the questions on the FAFSA or the CADA about having a child or a legal dependent. We had increased their Access Award or initiated an Access Award specifically for those Cal Grant A students to reflect the SWD amounts. Now, the caveat was the payments were on hold, including their tuition and fee award, until the student did their SWD certification. And so this created a barrier for students to receive their tuition and fee award before completing the SWD certification. So unconfirmed SWD students were reprocessed to remove the SWD flag if they hadn't done the certification in a specified amount of time. And this allowed schools to go ahead and pay out those base Cal Grant Award payments. Now, this is all prior to 24-25, but beginning this year, now students are flagged for potential SWD eligibility based on that response to the new combined dependent question on the FAFSA or CADA. And rather than the award being placed on hold, the awards are set at the base amount until after the student has certified their eligibility. And so when a student is on your roster, they may be flagged for SWD, but you can still pay them. You don't have to wait for them to complete the SWD eligibility. Instead, you can pay them for the base amount. So for example, if they're a Cal Grant B awardee, you can pay them that $824 amount rather than $3,000 because they haven't yet self-certified. This increases Access Award payments available for students until after they complete their SWD certification. At that time, you can go ahead and increase the amount, or in the case of Cal Grant A, you can go ahead and pay that Access Award. So this also leaves no need for us to reprocess unconfirmed SWD students throughout the year, and so students are still able to be paid, and if they forget to do their certification, they can still at least get their tuition and fees paid for. So on the Cal Grant roster data file, we also now have a new field that displays SWD certification completion date. And so this allows institutions to identify students who have completed their certification within a certain period. And so if you've already gone ahead and paid your Cal Grant students and are now trying to see who has since done their SWD certification, you can actually customize your roster to find students who have since completed their SWD certification. There's also the date. So if you're doing this weekly or monthly, you can identify those students that have completed it more recently. So you're not having to look at students that you've already paid. So hopefully this process has made SWD much easier. I know that this was an ask from schools for many years since we really started the program. So I hope that you all are seeing this become a more efficient process. Now, moving on to Chafee Grant. So again, this is not necessarily new information, but it is new for 24-25, so it's good to know, or it's a good refresher. So beginning with 24-25, Chafee Grant is now no longer considered other financial assistance, which is such a great update because now Chafee Grant students can receive this grant outside of their cost of attendance. Before, students who were receiving Pell Grant, Cal Grant, the Foster Youth Access Award, and perhaps other institutional aid or scholarships, if they were hitting their cost of attendance, it's possible that their Chafee Grant would need to be reduced because Chafee Grant was before based on need, remaining need, that is. Now that it is no longer considered other financial assistance, Chafee payments are excluded from the need analysis and total aid formulas. And the other good news is that Chafee is no longer included in the student's middle class scholarship award determination. That means that you no longer have to report you no longer have to report Chafee in your MCS enrollment files or in your payment roster files. So our foster youth students are able to get even more MCS because Chafee is no longer included. So this is fantastic for our current and former foster youth who often are facing barriers and obstacles to completing their education. So getting more money in their hands will allow them to meet their basic needs and to continue their educational journey. So for more information, I recommend reading our Grant Special Alert 2412, which is linked at the bottom of the slide. One other update, again, not fairly new, but still wanted it on your radar in case you didn't know. This is a fairly new batch upload functionality, which was in response to the elimination of the housing status question on the 24-25 FAFSA. The housing status field is used to calculate the unmet need for Cal Grant. So consequently, if the inaccurate housing status was on a student's record, our system would not calculate the correct unmet need for their Cal Grant award determination. So this new batch upload functionality is a way for schools to change a student's housing preference if they are no longer considered in the default housing status. So under under the Web Grants Help section, you can find the file specifications. Housing preference values are number 1 for on campus, number 2 for off campus, and number 3 for with parents or relative. You can view an upload summary of your report once you've uploaded your housing status changes, and you can utilize web grants for all of these features. So just again, if you want more information about how to upload your housing status changes in batch, you can view our Grant Special Alert 2413, which has more information about that. And I just wanted to draw your attention to our resource documents page. This has all sorts of 24-25 Cal Grant resources that you should have either bookmarked or print out, put it in your cubicle. These are going to be really helpful reference tools for when you're assisting students with Cal Grant and when you're administering it on your campus, including our brand new 24-25 Cal Grant handbook, the comparison chart, income and asset ceilings, and so on. So definitely bookmark this page, utilize these resources, and it will make your job so much easier. So next, we're going to take a look at updates to Cal Grant C. So if you weren't familiar with Cal Grant C, perhaps your school does not offer it, Cal Grant C is for vocational and technical programs. So it can be paid at a technical or vocational school or at a community college where the student is enrolled in a major that is a technical or vocational program. And so in response to changes on the 24-25 FAFSA, we have made processing changes to the Cal Grant C program. The question that allowed students to designate their degree objective was removed. So previously, prior to 24-25, the FAFSA and the CADA asked the student what college degree or certificate they would be working on when they began the school year. We used responses to this question to determine who could receive a preliminary Cal Grant C award. But because this question was removed, we had to change the selection process. So now we award preliminary Cal Grant C award consideration to students who are not already awarded a Cal Grant A or B and meet the following criteria. So as long as they submitted a 24-25 FAFSA or CADA by September 2nd, 2024, listed a Cal Grant C eligible school, and appear on their California Community College's enrollment file, we will consider them for a preliminary Cal Grant C award. So there are some special notes to take note of that community colleges should be uploading enrollment files for all of their students enrolled in fall of 2024, regardless of the number of units in which they're enrolled. And then if they need assistance, we do have a guide within Web Grants. And just here are some statistics so that you are in the know about our new Cal Grant C award consideration process. So we received a total of 255,035 FAFSA CADA applicants that we in turn sent a Cal Grant C supplement form to back in September. So that was the number of students who met all of that previous criteria I talked about. So we in turn sent them a Cal Grant C supplement form. We received about 25,000 completed supplement forms before we closed the submission window back in October. So on November 1st, we were able to complete the Cal Grant C awarding process. We had just over 11,000 applicants who had a score of 51 or above, and we were able to offer them a competitive Cal Grant C award. Now, please note that only 7,761 awards can be paid in 24-25, and so institutions are encouraged to process their Cal Grant C payments in a timely manner, because once we approach that 100% paid rate, we will have to cut off the rest of the students. So it works much like competitive Cal Grants A and B, where there is a limited number of applicants and a limited number of awards that we can give. So as long as you're paying those students in a timely manner, when they are eligible to be paid, they can, pretty much guarantee that they will receive that Cal Grant C. So just make sure you're keeping up with your rosters. Next, we're just going to take a brief look at the Golden State Teacher Grant. Many of you may know, especially if you are administering this program on your campus, that GSTG was affected heavily by the California budget this past spring. And as a result, we had to separate our applicants into cohorts. I won't go over this chart in too much detail. There have been some special alerts and operations memos that have been released regarding the Golden State Teacher Grant updates, but just so that you're aware, we have separated out certain cohorts depending on when they filed their GSTG application, if they had received a payment in a prior year, and all of this will affect not only their maximum award, but their service obligation. So keep this in mind when you are advising students that we have since closed the GSTG application because of limited funding, but based on when they applied and if they were a renewal student, their award amounts may vary. Again, for more information, check out our GSAs and our operations memos. And we also are offering Golden State Teacher Grant webinars and updates. So if you're interested in that, be sure to reach out to the GSTG team. And I did want to go over a few Middle Class Scholarship 2.0 updates for 24-25. Not that they're necessarily brand new, but they are new for this award year. And based on the number of applications that we had received and the delays that the simplified FAFSA had caused, we were actually able to extend the 24-25 MCS deadline to July 2nd. So enrollment data that is submitted for students who filed a FAFSA or CADA by July 2nd can be considered for a 24-25 MCS award. So this is great news, especially for the students who were struggling to submit their FAFSA in time due to certain barriers and issues with the application. They had up through July 2nd to submit in order to be considered for MCS. Now, there were some award calculation changes made this year as well. Just so you're aware, the phase-in factor was set for 35% this year. Last year it was 36%, so not a major change. We also increased the student contribution from $78.98 to $81.54. This is a set fixed student contribution that affects all students who go through the MCS program. Now, we also enhanced our system so that schools could report the students' total private scholarships and self-help aid, and we at the commission would calculate the excess amount to be used in the MCS award determination. So that should make it a lot easier on you schools rather than you having to calculate the excess and report that to us. Just let us know the total amount and we'll take it from there. Now, a very, very recent change that occurred, I believe just last week or within the last 2 weeks, was a major change to how the raw MCS award amount is updated to the final MCS award amount. Some of you who are well versed in MCS may remember that there was a step near the end where we would take the raw MCS and we would multiply and divide it by 6. That step has been removed, and this should resolve many of the rounding errors that some of you have seen. This is going to apply to all MCS calculations that were processed after November 7th. So in case you're seeing, new MCS awards come in or any corrections coming in, you may notice that you're not seeing them rounded in error. And so that is a really good improvement that we've seen, an excellent enhancement that we worked with the segments on before implementing. So that is very recent, just as of November 7th. We'll discuss this in more detail in our session C, which is going to be held on Wednesday. So hopefully you'll join us back on Wednesday for our MCS session during session C of Cal Grant Regional Training. Just a few other notable MCS updates. Student status corrections. This allows schools to make term level changes to a student's attendance status through cost of attendance. Essentially what that means is if a student goes from, say, being a fall-only graduate to attending for both fall and spring, the school can update that simply by updating the cost of attendance field within web grants. It used to be where you'd have to contact CSAC, the award would have to be withdrawn and then reprocessed, but now this is a feature available in web grants, in the enrollment file, and in the payment roster file layouts. Again, we'll be covering this in more detail on Wednesday in session C. There are also some screen updates within web grants. We added a few new fields that would make it easier, and so we'll discuss those as well on Wednesday. But some of the new fields include student status, parent contribution, and self-help gift aid reported by school. So all of these enhancements are to make your job easier and to allow you to assist your students even better. And this is probably the most notable change for 24-25 is how Cal Grant is reported for MCS purposes. So you may recall that last year, Cal Grant was reported by schools in the state aid field. But as of 24-25, schools are reporting Cal Grant amounts themselves. We are no longer referencing what is on the Cal Grant roster because, as we all know, sometimes Cal Grant reconciliation does not always happen in real time. And so schools can report the student's Cal Grant amount in a separate field, and they should be, because again, we will not be looking at the Cal Grant roster. We are only using the Cal Grant award amounts that schools are giving us. And so Cal Grant amounts must be added in enrollment file field 21 or in the payment roster file layout within fields 66 through 69, and they can also be added manually within the MCS display roster. So keep this in mind. You do have to report the Cal Grant amounts, and this was a request from our segments because of the timing between MCS award calculation and Cal Grant reconciliation. So hopefully this should make it a lot easier. And just a few other important updates. Just so you're aware, the 25-26 college cost estimate form must be completed and submitted by December 2nd. So that's coming up very soon. Please make sure that you're updating 25-26 estimated cost information by overriding the pre-populated fields. If 25-26 cost estimates are not available for your school yet, please update this information with your final 24-25 information. Now, if the college cost estimate form is not submitted by December 2nd, the Commission will utilize the school's data from 24-25. And please note that once the cost estimate screen has closed for the academic year, the information cannot be updated. So the best way to submit your college cost estimate is within Web Grants. And so I have a screenshot here. This is the cost estimate form within Web Grants. If you don't have access to the screen, check with your system administrator. It may just be a matter of your administrator granting you access to this particular screen. We also have a paper form available on our website. This is helpful for the instructions piece, but definitely submit it to us within Web Grants because that is the quickest way, it's the most accurate way. Now, since housing status is no longer required for the FAFSA CADA application, institutions will provide the preferred housing status by education level. The preferred housing status by education level will be used to determine the financial need for Cal Grant eligibility. So institutions must provide cost information not only for 3 budgets, but also include which default housing status should be set for each education level. So schools should be reporting on campus, off campus, and with parent budget amounts. If on campus is not available at your school, just enter the same amount as off campus. Again, you must also select the default housing status for each education level, including EL1, EL2, and then EL3 or greater. Now, for more information, we do have a very recent operations memo. That's 2448 linked at the bottom. And then also there's much more information about the college cost estimate process within our Cal Grant handbook. So make sure you take a look at that. And just a quick note that student expense budgets were calculated using the prescribed methodology for the 21-22 Student Expenses and Resources Survey, or the SEERS survey. It was also adjusted using the California Consumer Price Index, so that's the CCPI. Those are going to account for all projected inflation from 21-22 through 25-26. We also have the 25-26 income and asset ceilings available on our website for both Cal Grant and middle class scholarship. So be sure to check those out. And remember, if you have questions, please feel free to ask us in the Q&A box. We won't be answering questions in the chat, so use the Q&A window where we can answer you in real time. We have lots of our training team on the line ready to help you. In fact, we have Adrian, Leslie, Tharisha, Victoria, and Yvonne all available here to answer your questions. So don't be shy. We can answer you during the presentation, after the presentation, whatever you prefer. All right, so I'm just going to take a very quick pause to stop my recording and re-record. So give me just one moment.